again. So I thought I would address something else that when I was looking for other people's cancer experiences, like what the timeline was like and when people had their next appointments after the diagnosis. So I wanted to just let you know what my timeline looked like. And yes, I took notes. I'll go from the very beginning. So I saw my PCP in early to mid-October, got the referral for the mammogram. The mammogram was done in late October. I had the biopsy in late October, and then I found out 5 days later over the phone, the radiologist called me, which was on November 10th, 2020, that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So after I was diagnosed on November 10th, that Monday, November 16th, I met with a breast oncology surgeon. So we got our first opinion November 16th. Then I had an MRI on November 18th. Then on November 19th, I had a second opinion with another breast oncology surgeon. We ended up going with the second opinion. Then December 2nd, I got more biopsies. So this may have looked different if I hadn't have gone with my second opinion, but the first opinion was with a local hospital where my PCP works out of, and I've never really needed much medical interventions before. So anyway, I was just going along with the medical group that my PCP was associated with, and that was the local community hospital that's closest to where I live. But because I ended up going with a university hospital that has certifications regarding, the most recent practices and research with cancer treatments, that's the reason why we went with them. So basically, because we went with our second opinion, I then had to get additional biopsies. Different doctors have different methods of doing things. So with the first biopsy that I had, the radiologist ordered for me to get a biopsy of the mass and then one of the calcifications near the mass. Then with the second biopsy, the radiologist and the surgeon wanted to have a biopsy of the right lymph nodes because the cancer is in my right breast, and also the left breast because the MRI had picked up on another calcification in my left breast, which had not shown up in the mammogram that was previously done. And then they also wanted to get a biopsy of one of the calcifications in my right breast that was farthest away from the mass. So I had to get additional biopsies, which I got those 3 biopsies of the right axillary, the right breast, and the left breast on December 2nd. And then December 8th, I had an echocardiogram. Today is December 8th. So today I had an echo, and that's really just an ultrasound of the heart. And the reason why I got that is because the chemo that I'm going to be getting, which is Taxol, sometimes can affect the heart. So my understanding is I'll be getting echocardiograms sort of throughout my treatment. And then today I also had my first consultation with a plastic surgeon because I do plan on getting reconstructive surgery. And then tomorrow, December 9th, I am going to have my first chemo treatment. So that's the timeline, basically after I first started looking into this. And then something else I wanted to talk about too was important lessons that I have learned along the way. And the first one is get more than one opinion. I work in the medical field. I've been a hospital social worker for 6 years now, and I know logically that it's a good idea to get more than one opinion, but because I was in this situation, and even days after, it didn't even occur to me to look elsewhere or to even think about a second opinion. So I was so thankful that my stepmom had told me, you should get a second opinion. And as soon as she said that, I thought, of course. But because I was in it, I just wasn't thinking about it. I don't know if I would have thought about it because I was so overwhelmed. So First lesson, definitely get a second opinion, if not more. It just so happened that we did go with the second opinion, like I said, because of the qualifications that this hospital has. So anyway, definitely get a second opinion. We also really liked the second opinion because we really liked that surgeon. She had great bedside manner, and she also had a less invasive plan. So anyway, get a second opinion, if not more. That's the first lesson that I've learned. And the second lesson I learned is give kudos to the healthcare workers that you feel deserve recognition or praise. Tell them yourself, and also, if you have time, tell their supervisors. And on the flip side, if you don't have a good experience, say something. And if you can, say something in the moment. And if you don't do that, definitely say something afterwards. So I'll kind of give a little story with each side of that. With my first biopsy, I was so nervous. I went in with blinders on. I didn't want to look at anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to get in and out and be done with it because it scared me. The fact that I had to go in for a biopsy, I'd never had a biopsy before, and it was scary. So I went in, and I still don't know if she was a nurse or a tech. I have a feeling she was an ultrasound technologist because it was an ultrasound guided biopsy. But anyway, I remember this so well because she made it such a good experience. But basically what happened is I went in with the blinders on, just wanting to get in and out and be done with it, and I was scared. So I went in, and she was so sweet, and she had this sweet southern accent, and she was just talking. She was kind of filling in the silence. She was just talking to me, even though I really wasn't saying much of anything back. And I am usually I'm not the most talkative person, but I'm also, I don't know, I'm just usually not like that. If someone is talking to me, I will talk back to them. And I think of myself as a pretty pleasant person, and I'm definitely not rude by nature. But I just couldn't engage with her. Again, I just wanted to put my head down, put my blinders on, get in, get out, be done. So she was talking to me though, and she had told me that she had had breast cancer before. At that point, we didn't know if I had breast cancer or not, but I think she was just trying to put me at ease. And she was just being so kind and personable. And yeah, so I remember she was getting me set up for the biopsy to start, and then I just couldn't keep that wall up anymore. I just broke down and it was still just me and her in the room. And she held my hand and she said, "Tell me what's going on." And I literally told her, "You're just so kind." You're just so kind. And it was really her kindness that kind of killed me a little bit. If it was anyone else, I probably would have just stayed, with this wall up and sort of I just would have had this wall up still, but she was just chipping away at it. Her intention was not to make me cry. Her intention was to make me feel comfortable. And that's why I think I broke down, is because she made me feel comfortable. So I told her, "You're just so kind." And then I said, this was in the middle of sort of an ugly cry. And then I said, "I have babies." And she had told me that she was a mom. So she was, again, super sweet and kind. She said, "Okay, well, we'll talk about your babies and I'll hold your hand the whole time and you'll get through this and I'll be right here the whole time." And she did. And it also just so happened that the radiologist who performed the biopsy was also very kind and sweet. And we just talked about my girls. We talked about the holidays during a pandemic coming up. And that tech or nurse with a sweet southern accent literally held my hand the whole time. And I remember every single detail of it, I think, because it was a really good experience. And I'm so thankful that that was my first biopsy experience. So I called and I asked for the supervisor, but basically she gave me her email address. I actually have still yet to email that supervisor, but I will. But I just think it's important to do because the healthcare field is not easy and people are usually not that happy. So it can be a very thankless job. So I think it's important to thank and give praise to the people who really do a good job. So I am going to do that, and I'm so thankful to her, and I will probably never forget that experience because of her. Like, she made that experience so good, even though it was a really hard day for me, time for me. On the flip side, the second time that I had to go get biopsies, the time when I had to get 3 biopsies, I did not have such a good experience, and I don't want to go into full detail, but the main gist of it is that this doctor had awful bedside manner. I asked a question. I don't even remember what question I asked anymore. I think it's because I don't want to remember, but I remember asking him a question within minutes of him coming into the room, and he basically laughed at me. He gave me some sort of answer that didn't fully make sense, but at that point I didn't feel comfortable enough to ask any other questions. So that was one thing. Horrible bedside manner. He embarrassed me, and he was just rough. Physically with the biopsy, he was really rough. I have so much more bruising than I did with the first biopsy. Thankfully, it's still been a relatively quick recovery, and I only had to take Tylenol for 1 day. But it was bad. It was not pleasant. Oh, and then the other thing was, not only was he terrible at communicating with me, but I could also tell he was not communicating that well with the other nurse or tech. In terms of what they were actually saying, it was as if they were speaking a different language, but I could tell that she was continuously asking for clarification, and he was not giving her the clarification that she was looking for. So in the moment, I was watching their communication, which was not good, and so that made me feel nervous because I'm the patient, and to see the medical professionals in front of me struggling with their communication was just unnerving. So there was that. Yeah, so the second biopsy was a bad experience, but I pushed through it. At the end of the day, I cried because it's just not a good experience. So my lesson from that is, if in the moment you are feeling uncomfortable in any way, or if you feel like your questions are not answered in any way, or if you feel like you don't fully understand what's going on in any way, or if you are just really unhappy with the quality of care that you are receiving, you have a right to say, stop, or I don't understand, I need more clarification, or I need to work with someone else. This is not okay for me. And I knew that. I am a social worker. My job is to be an advocate for patients in the hospital. And even though that's the case, in the moment, it didn't occur to me to say anything. I just kind of swallowed it and just waited for it to be over and left, and then I paid for it later. So after that happened, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who just reminded me, this is your body, and you have every right to know exactly what's being done to it, and you have every right to say, I'm not comfortable with this. Even just walk out of the room, refuse to continue, do whatever you need to do because it's your body. And as soon as she said that, I was like, of course. I don't know why I didn't think of that in the moment, but that's a really important lesson, is to just remember that you need to be comfortable with what people are doing to your body, and you need to fully understand what they're doing to your body, and you need to be treated with respect. I mean, as simple as that. You need to be treated with respect. So, thanks to my conversation with my friend, I am going to be calling and filing a grievance, or at least make it known that I had a really bad experience with this doctor. And I think that that's just as important as giving the doctors or healthcare workers who do a great job praise. I think it's just as important to give feedback when you're not happy with your care, because if you don't say anything, no one's going to know the wiser. So I do plan on acting now on that as well. So those are just 2 lessons that I have learned along the way that I wanted to share. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Okay. Okay, I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.